Jake Morrison pulled his truck into the driveway and turned off the engine. The rain was coming down hard now, beating against the windshield like angry fingers. He sat for a moment, looking at his empty house through the storm. 3 years had passed since Sarah died, and he still expected to see her waiting for him at the kitchen window. The cattle ranch stretched out for 200 acres around his home in Montana. It was good land, rich and green, perfect for raising beef cattle. Jake had built this life with Sarah, planning to fill the house with children and laughter. Now it was just him and the cows day after day. He grabbed his coat and ran through, the rain to the front door. Inside, the house felt cold and quiet. Jake turned on the lights and looked around the empty rooms. The furniture was still the same as when Sarah picked it out. Her books were still on the shelves. Her coffee cup was still in the kitchen cabinet waiting for her to come home. Jake made himself a sandwich and sat at the kitchen table alone. The rain kept falling, harder now. Through the window, he could see his red barn where he kept the hay and tools. Lightning flashed across the sky and thunder rolled over the hills like a freight train. After dinner, Jake tried to watch television, but the storm was too loud. The power flickered on and off. He decided to go to bed early, but something made him look out the window one more time. The barn door was open, swinging back and forth in the wind. Jake cursed under his breath. He must have forgotten to latch it properly that morning. If the hay got wet, it would be ruined. He pulled on his boots and coat and grabbed a flashlight. The rain soaked through his jacket before he was halfway to the barn. The barn was dark inside except for his flashlight beam. Jake walked toward the door to close it, but something made him stop. There was a sound coming from the back of the barn, near the hay bales. It sounded like crying. Jake moved slowly toward the sound, his boots crunching on the straw. His flashlight cut through the darkness, and suddenly he saw them. 2 children were huddled together behind a stack of hay. Bales. They were soaking wet and shivering. The older child was a girl, maybe 12 years old. She had dark hair stuck to her face and wore a torn jacket that was too big for her. She was holding a younger boy, about 8, who was crying softly. The boy had the same dark hair and big brown eyes. Both children looked scared and hungry. The girl saw Jake's flashlight and jumped up, putting herself between him and the boy. Her chin was raised, and her hands were shaking, but she looked ready to fight. "Don't hurt us," she said in a voice that tried to be brave. "We're not stealing anything, we were just trying to get out of the rain." Jake stopped where he was and lowered his flashlight so it wouldn't blind them. He could see they were both very young and very afraid. Their clothes were wet and dirty. The boy's lips were blue from the cold. "I'm not going to hurt you," Jake said quietly. He kept his voice calm, the way he used to talk to scared animals. "My name is Jake. This is my barn. What are your names?" The girl studied his face for a long moment. "I'm Emma," she said finally. "This is my brother Tommy." Tommy pressed closer to his sister and wiped his nose with his sleeve. He looked at Jake with wide, frightened eyes, but didn't say anything. "How long have you been out here?" Jake asked. "Since this afternoon," Emma said. "We walked a long way. Tommy's tired and hungry, but we're okay. We don't need help." Jake could see that wasn't true. Both children looked like they hadn't eaten in days. Their shoes were falling apart and they were shivering so hard they could barely stand. "Where did you walk from?" Jake asked. Emma's jaw tightened. "It doesn't matter. We're not going back." "Back? Where?" "Just not back," Emma said firmly. "We're fine here. We'll leave in the morning if you want." Thunder crashed overhead and Tommy jumped. He started crying again and Emma put her arms around him. "You can't stay out here all night," Jake said. "You'll freeze to death, and that little boy needs food and dry clothes." "We've been okay before," Emma said, but her voice was getting shaky. Jake looked at the 2 children and felt something stir in his chest that he hadn't felt in 3 years. They reminded him of the baby calves he sometimes found lost in storms, scared and alone. You couldn't just leave them to die. "Listen," Jake said slowly. "My house is warm and dry. I've got food and clean clothes. You can spend the night and we'll figure things out in the morning. No questions tonight, okay?" Emma stared at him for a long time. Jake could see her thinking, trying to decide if she could trust him. Finally, Tommy's shivering became so bad that she nodded. "Okay," she whispered. "But if you try to hurt us or call anyone, we'll run away. And this time you won't find us." "I understand," Jake said. He led them out of the barn and through the rain to his house. Inside, the warm air made the children's cheeks turn red. Jake found some of his old clothes for them to change into while their wet things dried. The shirts came down to their knees, but at least they were warm and dry. Jake made them soup and sandwiches while they sat at his kitchen table. He watched them eat like they hadn't seen food in weeks. Tommy ate 3 sandwiches before he slowed down. Emma tried to eat slowly, but Jake could tell she was starving too. "There's more if you want it," Jake said. "Thank you," Emma said quietly. It was the first time she had relaxed since he found them. After they ate, Jake showed them to his guest room. He hadn't used it since Sarah died, but it had twin beds and clean sheets. He gave them extra blankets and left a glass of water on the nightstand. "The bathroom is down the hall," he said. "If you need anything, just call. I'll be right across the hall." Emma nodded. "We'll be gone early in the morning, before you wake up." Jake looked at her serious little face and felt his heart break a little. "We'll talk about it tomorrow. Get some sleep." He left them alone and went to his own room, but he couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the fear in their eyes and the way Emma protected her little brother. Something terrible had happened to these children, something that made them run away into a storm rather than stay where they were. Jake stared at the ceiling and listened to the rain slow down outside. For the first time in 3 years, his house didn't feel completely empty. There were other people breathing under his roof, other hearts beating in the darkness. He didn't know their story yet, but he knew one thing for certain. Tomorrow morning, he wasn't going to let them disappear back into the storm. Jake woke up before dawn like he had every day for the past 3 years. The storm had passed and morning light was just starting to come through his bedroom window. For a moment, he forgot about the children. Then he remembered and sat up. Quickly, he walked quietly down the hall and looked into the guest room. The beds were empty, blankets thrown back. His heart sank. They had kept their promise and left before he woke up. Jake hurried to the kitchen and looked out the window toward the road. Nothing. He was about to grab his coat and go look for them when he heard voices coming from outside. He opened the back door and saw Emma and Tommy in his yard. Emma was hanging their wet clothes on his fence to dry in the morning sun. Tommy was sitting on the ground playing with Jake's old barn cat. The orange cat was purring and rubbing against the boy's legs. Tommy was giggling, the first happy sound Jake had heard from him. "Good morning," Jake called out. Emma turned around quickly like she had been caught doing something wrong. "We were just getting our clothes. We'll leave as soon as they're dry." "There's no hurry," Jake said. "Are you hungry? I was about to make breakfast." Tommy looked up hopefully, but Emma shook her head. "We already ate too much of your food last night." Jake could see that both children were still hungry. Their faces were thin, and their clothes hung loose on their small bodies. "I always make too much," Jake lied. "I hate to waste it. You'd be doing me a favor." Emma looked at Tommy, who was still petting the cat. The boy's stomach growled loudly and Emma's face softened. "Maybe just a little," she said. Inside, Jake made pancakes and bacon while the children sat at his kitchen table. He noticed how Emma watched his every move, like she was ready to grab Tommy and run if Jake did anything threatening. But slowly, as he cooked and talked about the weather and his cattle, she began to relax. Tommy ate 4 pancakes and asked if the cat could come inside. Emma told him to stop bothering Jake with questions, but Jake said the cat was welcome anytime. "His name is Rusty," Jake told Tommy. "He's been living in my barn for 2 years. He's good at catching mice." "I like cats," Tommy said shyly. "We had one once, but we had to leave it behind." "When was that?" Jake asked gently. Emma's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. "A long time ago," she said quickly. "Before we moved around so much." Jake didn't push for more information. Instead, he asked if they wanted to see his cattle. Tommy's eyes lit up, but Emma shook her head. "We should go," she said. "People will be looking for us." "What people?" Jake asked. Emma's face closed off again. Just people. We can't stay here. Jake sat down across from them. Emma, where did you come from? Who's looking for you? Emma stared at her plate. For a long moment, the only sound was Tommy crunching his bacon. Finally, she looked up at Jake with eyes that seemed too old for her 12-year-old face. We're foster kids, she said. Our mom died 4 years ago. Since then, we've lived with different families. The last one. She stopped and looked at Tommy, who had gone very quiet. The last one was bad? Jake asked softly. Emma nodded. Mr. Peterson said he wanted to help kids, but he only wanted the money the state pays him. He made us sleep in the basement. He said we were lucky he let us eat his food, and when he got angry... She touched her arm, and Jake saw a fading bruise above her wrist. Jake felt anger rise in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. Did he hurt Tommy too? He tried, Emma said, her voice getting hard. But I wouldn't let him. That's when we ran away. I told Tommy we were going on an adventure, but really I just didn't know where else to go. Tommy had stopped eating. He was staring at his plate, and Jake could see tears in his eyes. You did the right thing, Jake told Emma. You protected your brother. That was very brave. Emma's tough expression cracked a little. But now we don't have anywhere to go. If they find us, they'll send us back to him, or maybe somewhere worse. Jake thought about this. He knew he should call the authorities. These children belonged in the system, with people who were trained to take care of them. But the thought of sending them back to someone who hurt them made him feel sick. What if I made some phone calls, Jake said. I have a friend who works with foster children. Maybe he can help make sure you don't go back to Mr. Peterson. Emma shook her head hard. Adults always say they'll help, but then they don't. They just do what's easiest for them. Not all adults, Jake said. Some of us keep our promises. How do we know you're one of those? Emma asked. Jake looked at her suspicious face and Tommy's scared eyes. These children had been hurt by the people who were supposed to protect them. They had no reason to trust him. I guess you don't know, Jake said honestly. But I'm asking you to give me a chance to prove it. Stay here today. Let me make some calls. If my friend can't help, or if you don't like what he says, you can leave tonight. I won't try to stop you. Emma studied his face for a long time. Why? Would you help us? You don't even know us. Jake thought about Sarah and how much he had wanted children. He thought about his empty house and his lonely days, but mostly he thought about the fear in their eyes and how young they were. Because you need help, he said simply. And because I have room here for you to be safe while we figure things out. Tommy looked up from his plate. Can Rusty stay inside while we're here? Jake smiled. Rusty can stay inside as long as you want. Emma was quiet for several minutes. Finally, she nodded. One day. But if your friend says we have to go back to Mr. Peterson, we're leaving. Deal, Jake said. After breakfast, Jake called his old army, buddy Mike, who worked for the state's Child Services Department. Jake explained the situation without giving the children's names or exact location. Mike listened carefully. You're right to be concerned, Mike said. This Peterson guy sounds like bad news. But Jake, these kids need to be in the system. You can't just keep them. I'm not talking about keeping them, Jake said, though something in his chest tightened as he said it. I just want to make sure they're safe. Give me until tomorrow, Mike said. Let me make some calls and see what I can find out about their case. In the meantime, they can stay with you as emergency placement. But Jake, don't get too attached. These kids have been through trauma. They need specialized care. After Jake hung up, he found Emma and Tommy in his living room. Emma was reading one of Sarah's books, and Tommy was lying on the floor with Rusty, drawing pictures on the back of an old envelope. What did your friend say? Emma asked immediately. He's going to look into your case, Jake said. He promised you won't go back to Mr. Peterson, but it might take a day or two to find you a new placement. Emma's face was hard to read. And then we leave. Then you go somewhere safe, Jake said. That afternoon, Jake showed them around his ranch. Tommy was fascinated by the cattle and asked 100 questions about how to take care of them. Emma was quieter, but Jake caught her looking around at the open fields and the mountains in the distance with something like wonder in her eyes. "It's so quiet here," she said. "In the city, there's always noise, cars and sirens and people yelling." "Do you like the quiet?" Jake asked. Emma shrugged. "It's different. Not bad different. Just different." That evening, Jake made dinner while the children sat at his kitchen table doing homework. Emma had been carrying their school books in her backpack. She helped Tommy with his math while she worked on her own assignments. "You're both good students," Jake observed. "Emma's really smart," Tommy said proudly. "She helps me with everything because the foster families never did." "Tommy's smart too," Emma said quickly. "He just needs someone to explain things to him." Jake watched them work together and felt something warm spread through his chest. They took care of each other in a way that made his throat tight. These weren't just any children. They were a family, small and broken but fierce in their loyalty to each other. That night, as he tucked them into the twin beds, Tommy asked, "Jake, do you think we could stay here forever?" Emma shot her brother a warning look. "Tommy, we talked about this. We can't stay anywhere forever." "But what if Jake wanted us to?" Tommy asked. Jake felt his heart skip a beat. He looked at Emma's guarded face and Tommy's hopeful eyes, and for the first time in 3 years he imagined his house full of life again. "We'll see what tomorrow brings," he said gently. "For now, just get some sleep." But as Jake lay in his own bed that night, he couldn't stop thinking about Tommy's question. What if they could stay? What if this empty house could be full of voices and laughter again? What if he could be the adult who finally kept his promise to these children? The thought scared him almost as much as it excited him. He hadn't been able to protect Sarah. How could he protect Emma and Tommy? But as he drifted off to sleep, Jake found himself hoping that Mike would take a long time to find them a new placement. Just a little longer, he thought. Just enough time to make sure they were really safe. One day turned into 3, then 5, then a full week. Mike kept calling with updates about the children's case, but there were complications. Mr. Peterson was under investigation now, which meant all his foster children had to be moved. The system was overloaded and finding good placements took time. "I might have found something," Mike told Jake on the phone. "There's a family in Billings who might take them. They have experience with siblings." Jake felt his stomach drop. "Billings is 4 hours away. I know it's far, but Jake, you have to understand. These kids need stability. They need a real family." Jake looked out his kitchen window at Emma and Tommy. They were in the yard, and Emma was teaching Tommy how to throw a rope. She had been watching Jake work with the cattle and figured out the technique on her own. Now she was passing it on to her brother. "Let me think about it," Jake said. That week had changed everything. The children had settled into a routine that felt natural. Emma woke up early and helped Jake feed the cattle. She was smart and quick to learn, remembering everything he taught her about ranch work. Tommy was gentler, preferring to help with the smaller animals. He had a way with the barn cats and had even convinced a shy horse to eat carrots from his hand. In the evenings, they did homework at the kitchen table while Jake cooked dinner. Emma was 2 grades ahead in reading and helped Tommy with his schoolwork. They told Jake stories about their mother, who had been a nurse before she got sick. They talked about the good foster families they had lived with and the bad ones. Slowly, their guard was coming down. "Jake," Emma said one morning while they were feeding the cattle, "can I ask you something?" "Sure. Why don't you have kids of your own? You're good with us, and this place seems like it would be perfect for a family." Jake was quiet for a moment. He had been wondering when they would ask about Sarah. "I was married," he said finally. "My wife Sarah and I wanted children, but we never had any. Then she died in a car accident 3 years ago." Emma stopped throwing hay and looked at him. "I'm sorry, that must have been really hard." "It was," Jake said. "It still is sometimes." "Is that why you're sad?" Tommy asked. He had been listening while he petted Rusty. "I was sad," Jake said. "But I'm not as sad anymore." "Because we're here?" Tommy asked hopefully. Jake smiled. "Yeah, because you're here." That afternoon, Jake found Emma sitting on his front porch staring out at the mountains. She looked troubled. "Everything okay?" he asked, sitting down next to her. "Jake, what happens when Mike finds us a new family? What if they don't want Tommy and me to stay together?" Jake felt cold fear run through him. "Why would you think that?" "It's happened before," Emma said quietly. "Some families only want one child. They say two is too much work. Tommy and I got separated for 3 months once. It was the worst time of my life. Mike knows you need to stay together," Jake said. "Adults say a lot of things," Emma said, "but they don't always happen." That evening, Jake called Mike back. "Tell me about this family in Billings." "The Hendersons. They've been fostering for 10 years. Good references, nice home. Would they take both children?" Mike was quiet for a moment. "Well, they usually prefer younger kids, and 2 siblings can be challenging, so they might split them up." "Jake, sometimes that's what's best for the children. Emma's almost a teenager. She might do better in a different environment than Tommy." Jake felt anger rise in his chest. These kids have been through hell. The only constant they've had is each other. You want to take that away too? "I know you care about them," Mike said, "but you're not thinking clearly. You're a single man with no experience raising children. These kids need structure, therapy, educational support. They're getting that. Here," Jake said. "Emma's reading at a high school level and Tommy's math has improved every day this week. They're happy. They're safe. They're healing." "Jake, what are you saying?" Jake looked at the children's drawings on his refrigerator, at Tommy's boots by the front door, at Emma's book on the coffee table. The house felt alive again in a way it hadn't since Sarah died. "I'm saying I want to apply to be their foster parent," Jake said. Mike was quiet for a long time. "Jake, that's a big decision. Are you sure you're ready for that kind of responsibility?" "I don't know if anyone's ever really ready," Jake said. "But I know these kids need someone who won't give up on them. And I need them too." The next morning, Jake told Emma and Tommy about his conversation with Mike. Emma's face went through a series of emotions: surprise, hope, and then worry. "But what if they say no?" she asked. "What if they don't think you're good enough to be our foster parent?" "Then we'll figure something else out," Jake said. "But Emma, I want you to know something. Even if I can't officially be your foster parent, I'm not going to let you get split up. And I'm not going to let anyone hurt you again." Tommy launched himself at Jake and hugged him tight. "Does this mean we can stay?" "It means I'm going to try my best to make that happen," Jake said. Emma was more cautious. "Why would you want us? We're not your real kids, and we come with a lot of problems." Jake knelt down so he was at her eye level. "Emma, I want you because you're brave and smart and you take care of people you love. I want Tommy because he's kind and funny and he sees the good in everything. I want both of you because this house has been empty without you, and my life has been empty without you." For the first time since he had known her, Emma started to cry. Not scared tears or angry tears, but tears of relief. "I want to stay too," she whispered. "I want to stay so much." The process of becoming a foster parent was more complicated than Jake had expected. There were forms to fill out, background checks to complete, and home visits to schedule. A social worker, named Mrs. Chen, came to inspect his house and interview all of them. "Mr. Morrison," she said, looking around his kitchen, "this is a very isolated location. How would the children get to school? What about medical care? What about social activities with other children?" Jake had thought about all of this. "There's good school 20 minutes away. I can drive them every day. The county hospital is 30 minutes in the other direction. As for social activities, there are 4-H clubs and sports teams in town." Mrs. Chen made notes on her clipboard. "And you have no experience with children?" "No formal experience," Jake said. "But I raised calves that were orphaned. I know how to be patient and consistent. I know how to provide for someone who depends on me." Mrs. Chen looked skeptical. "Mr. Morrison, children are not cattle." "No," Jake said. "They're more important than cattle. That's why I want to do this." "Right." Mrs. Chen interviewed Emma and Tommy separately. When she asked Emma if she felt safe with Jake, Emma said, "Safer than I've felt in 4 years." When she asked Tommy if he liked living on the ranch, Tommy said, "It's the best place I've ever lived. Jake lets me help with everything, and he never yells at us, and Rusty sleeps on my bed." After the interview, Mrs. Chen told Jake, "The children clearly care about you, and you obviously care about them. But Mr. Morrison fostering is about more than good intentions. These children have trauma histories. They may need therapy, special educational support, medical care for issues you don't even know about yet." "I understand that," Jake said. "I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to get help when I need it. I just want to give them a chance to be children again." Mrs. Chen's expression softened a little. "I can see that you mean well. But there's another issue. The children's aunt has come forward. She wants custody." Jake felt like he had been punched in the stomach. "Their aunt? Where has she been for 4 years?" "That's not really your concern," Mrs. Chen said. "Family reunification is always the goal in these situations." That evening, Jake broke the news to Emma and Tommy. Emma's face went white. "Aunt Linda?" she whispered. "She wants us now? Who's Aunt Linda?" Jake asked. "My mom's sister," Emma said. "She never wanted anything to do with us before. When Mom was sick, we asked if we could live with her, but she said she was too busy with her own life." Tommy started crying. "I don't want to go with her. I want to stay here with you and Rusty." "Why would she want us now?" Emma asked. And Jake could see her mind working. "Unless..." Her face hardened. "Jake, is there money involved? Like, do you get paid to take care of us?" Jake nodded. "Foster parents get a monthly stipend to help with expenses." "That's why she wants us," Emma said bitterly. "Not because she loves us, because she needs money." Jake pulled both children close to him. "We don't know that for sure," he said, though he suspected Emma was right. "But I promise you this. I won't let anyone take you somewhere you don't want to go without a fight." That night, Jake sat on his porch and thought about what he was up against. The system favored family members, even ones who had been absent for years. He was just a single man with no experience and a remote ranch. But as he looked at the light in the guest room window, where Emma was reading to Tommy before bed, Jake made a decision. These children had been failed by too many adults already. He wasn't going to be another one. He was going to fight for them no matter what it took. Jake's first meeting with his lawyer didn't go well. David Martinez was a family law attorney in town who had handled Sarah's estate. He was honest, which Jake appreciated, but his honesty wasn't encouraging. "Jake, I have to tell you straight," David said, leaning back in his chair. "Blood relatives have priority in custody cases. Unless this aunt is proven unfit, the court will likely award her custody." "What if the children don't want to go with her?" Jake asked. "The court considers the children's wishes, especially at Emma's age. But it's not the deciding factor. The judge will want to know why a single man with no children wants to take on 2 traumatized kids instead of letting them go to family." Jake felt frustrated. "Because I care about them. Because they're safe and happy with me." "That's not enough," David said gently. "You need to understand what you're up against. This aunt can argue that the children belong with blood family. She can say you're a stranger who took advantage of runaway children. And Jake, your psychological evaluation raised some red flags." Jake had been required to see a therapist as part of his foster parent application. Dr. Williams had been kind, but thorough, asking about his marriage, Sarah's death, and his 3 years of isolation. "What kind of red flags?" Jake asked. "You haven't dealt with your grief over Sarah's death. You've been living like a hermit for 3 years. The evaluation suggests you might be trying to replace your lost family with these children." "That's not what this is about," Jake said angrily. "I know that. But it's how it could look to a judge. Jake, if you really want to fight for these kids, you need to start therapy. You need to show that you're dealing with your own issues so you can focus on theirs." That afternoon, Jake drove home feeling defeated. When he pulled into his driveway, he saw Emma and Tommy in the pasture with his cattle. Emma was showing Tommy how to check the fence post for damage. They both wore his old work gloves and carried tools like they belonged there. How did it go? Emma asked when he walked over to them. Jake forced a smile. It's going to be complicated, but we're not giving up. That evening, Linda Jeffries arrived without warning. Jake opened his front door to find a woman in her 30s with bleached blonde hair and too much makeup. She wore high heels and a tight dress that wasn't suitable for a ranch. You must be Morrison, she said, pushing past him into his house. I'm Linda Jeffries, Emma and Tommy's aunt. I'm here to collect my nephew and niece. Emma and Tommy were doing homework at the kitchen table. When they saw Linda, Emma stood up and moved protectively in front of Tommy. Aunt Linda, Emma said carefully. We didn't know you were coming. Well, surprise, Linda said with fake cheerfulness. I've been worried sick about you two. When I heard you ran away, I dropped everything to come get you. Where have you been for 4 years? Emma asked bluntly. Linda's smile faltered. I've been dealing with my own problems, sweetie. But I'm in a better place now, and I want you both to come live with me. Jake watched the exchange carefully. Tommy had moved even closer to Emma and was staring at his aunt with confusion. I don't remember you very much, Tommy said quietly. You were little when your mama died, Linda said. But we're family. Blood is thicker than water, right? Emma's jaw tightened. You didn't come to Mom's funeral. I was sick that day, Linda said quickly. But let's not dwell on the past. I've got a nice apartment in Missoula. You'll love it there. What kind of work do you do? Jake asked. Linda looked at him like she resented his question. I'm between jobs right now, but I'm getting assistance and the state will help with the kids' expenses. Emma and Jake exchanged glances. It was clear that Linda was more interested in the monthly foster payments than in the children themselves. I want to talk to Emma and Tommy alone, Linda said. Family business. No, Emma said firmly. If you want to talk to us, Jake can stay. Linda's fake smile disappeared. Emma, I'm your aunt. You don't get to make demands. And I'm their guardian right now, Jake said calmly. They have the right to have me present. Linda spent an hour trying to convince the children to come with her. She promised them new clothes, a TV in their room, and trips to McDonald's whenever they wanted. Tommy was tempted by the promises, but Emma remained skeptical. Why do you want us now? Emma asked. You never cared before. That's not true, Linda said. I always cared. I just wasn't ready to be responsible for children. But I am now. What changed? Emma pressed. Linda struggled for an answer. I grew up. I realized family is important. After Linda left, promising to return with a social worker, Emma and Tommy were quiet during dinner. Jake, Tommy said finally. Do we have to go with her? I'm going to do everything I can to keep you here, Jake promised. But what if it's not enough? Emma asked. She looked scared in a way Jake hadn't seen since their first night. Jake knelt down next to her chair. Emma, do you trust me? She nodded. Then, trust me when I say I won't let anything bad happen to you or Tommy. Even if the courts say you have to go with your aunt, I'll keep fighting. And if things don't work out with her, you can always come back here. Promise? Tommy asked. Promise, Jake said. The next few days were tense. Jake hired a private investigator to look into Linda's background. What they found wasn't encouraging for her case. Linda had been arrested twice for drunk driving, had been evicted from 3 apartments in 2 years, and had a history of unstable employment. But Jake's own situation wasn't perfect either. Mrs. Chen came for another visit and pointed out several problems with his foster application. Mr. Morrison, your house is very isolated. The children would be dependent on you for all transportation. What if there was an emergency and you couldn't drive them? I have neighbors, Jake said, and the emergency services know how to get here. What about their education? The local school is small and doesn't have many resources. It has good teachers and small class sizes, Jake countered. Emma and Tommy are both doing well with their current studies. Mrs. Chen made more notes, and frankly, your psychological evaluation is concerning. Dr. Williams recommended ongoing therapy before you take on the responsibility of foster children. Jake had started seeing Dr. Williams twice a week. It was hard talking about Sarah, and the emptiness he had felt since she died. But he was learning things about himself that he needed to understand. "I am in therapy," Jake said, "and I'm committed to continuing it." "Why is this so important to you?" Mrs. Chen asked. "There are many children in the system who need homes. Why these two specifically?" Jake thought about how to explain it. "Because they chose me too," he said finally. "These aren't just any children who need help. They're Emma and Tommy. Emma, who is brave enough to protect her little brother even when she's scared. Tommy, who sees the good in everything and makes me laugh every day. They're not abstract children who need homes. They're my children now, in every way that matters, except legally." Mrs. Chen looked around his kitchen, where Emma's artwork was hung on the refrigerator next to Tommy's math homework. Jake's house had been transformed in just 2 weeks. There were shoes by the door, books on the coffee table, and the sound of voices calling goodnight down the hallway. "The children do seem happy here," she admitted. "But Mr. Morrison, good intentions aren't enough. What happens if Emma has nightmares about her past trauma? What if Tommy acts out at school? What if they need medical care you can't afford?" "Then I'll learn how to help them," Jake said. "I'll get them the best doctors and therapists available. I'll drive them to appointments every day if I have to." "Mrs. Chen, these children have been failed by the system multiple times. They've been hurt by people who were supposed to protect them. All I'm asking for is a chance to show them that not all adults will let them down." That evening, Jake found Emma sitting on his front porch again, staring out at the sunset. It had become her thinking spot. "Worried about tomorrow?" he asked. The court hearing was scheduled for the next day. Emma nodded. "Jake, what if they decide we have to go with Aunt Linda? What if this was just too good to be true?" Jake sat down next to her. "Emma, I want you to listen to me carefully. No matter what happens tomorrow, you and Tommy are not alone anymore. Even if the court says you have to live with your aunt, I will stay in your lives. I'll call you every day. I'll visit whenever I can. And if things don't work out with her, I'll be here waiting for you. You promise you won't forget about us?" Jake felt his throat tighten. "Emma, I could never forget about you and Tommy. You two changed my life. Before you came here, I was just going through the motions every day. Now I have a reason to get up in the morning. I have people to take care of and people who take care of me. You gave me back my family." Emma wiped her eyes. "You gave us a family too. The first real family we've had since Mom died." That night, Jake lay in bed listening to Emma read to Tommy in the next room. It was their nightly ritual now. Emma would read a chapter from whatever book they were working on, and Tommy would ask questions or make comments about the story. Tonight they were reading Charlotte's Web, and Tommy was upset about Charlotte getting old. "But why does she have to die?" Tommy asked. "Because that's how life works sometimes," Emma said gently. "But Tommy, remember what Charlotte said. She'll always be part of the farm because of everything she did there. She made friends and helped Wilbur, and that doesn't go." The courthouse in town was busy that morning. Jake wore his only suit, the one he had worn to Sarah's funeral 3 years ago. Emma had on a blue dress that Mrs. Chen had brought her, and Tommy wore khakis and a button-down shirt that Jake had bought him the day before. They sat on a wooden bench outside the courtroom, waiting for their case to be called. Emma kept smoothing down her dress and Tommy swung his legs nervously. Jake wished he could promise them everything would be okay, but he didn't want to lie. "Remember what we talked about," Jake said quietly. "Just tell the truth. Tell the judge how you feel and what you want." Linda arrived 20 minutes late, wearing a bright pink dress and carrying a large purse. She had brought a lawyer, a thin man in an expensive suit who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Sorry I'm late," Linda announced loudly. Traffic was terrible. Jake noticed she smelled like cigarettes and something else he couldn't identify. Emma noticed too and wrinkled her nose. When they were called into the courtroom, Jake felt his stomach knot up. Judge Patricia Hawkins was a woman in her 50s with gray hair and serious eyes. She looked like someone who had seen everything and wasn't easily impressed. "This is a custody hearing for Emma Marie Caldwell, age 12, and Thomas James Caldwell, age 8, the judge said, reading from her papers. The children are currently in emergency placement with Mr. Jake Morrison. Their aunt, Ms. Linda Jeffries, is petitioning for custody. Linda's lawyer spoke first. He talked about family bonds and blood relationships. He said that children belonged with their relatives, not with strangers. He made it sound like Jake had stolen the children instead of saving them from a storm. Ms. Jeffries has secured housing suitable for the children, the lawyer said. She is their closest living relative and is prepared to provide them with a stable home environment. When it was David's turn to speak, he talked about the children's safety and happiness. He mentioned that they had been failed by the system multiple times and were finally thriving with Jake. Your Honor, these children have experienced significant trauma. They have found stability and healing in Mr. Morrison's care. Removing them now would cause additional psychological harm. Judge Hawkins asked Linda to approach the witness stand. Under oath, Linda talked about her love for the children and her desire to provide them with a good home. I know I wasn't there. Before? Linda said, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. I was dealing with my own problems, but I'm better now, and I want to make up for lost time. Ms. Jeffries, the judge said, can you tell me about your current living situation? I have a 2-bedroom apartment in Missoula. It's in a nice neighborhood with good schools. And your employment? Linda hesitated. I'm between jobs right now, but I'm actively looking. And I know I'll receive assistance for taking care of the children. Jake's lawyer asked Linda some harder questions. He asked about her arrest record, her evictions, and why she hadn't helped when the children's mother was dying. I was going through a difficult time, Linda said, getting defensive. I wasn't in a position to take on children, but people change. I'm ready now. What do you know about Tommy's favorite activities? David asked. Linda looked confused. He's 8. He likes toys and cartoons, I guess. And Emma's educational goals? She's smart. She'll do fine in school. It was clear that Linda knew very little about the children as individuals. She saw them as a responsibility, not as people she loved. When Jake took the stand, he talked about the past month. He described Emma's intelligence and protectiveness, Tommy's gentle nature and love of animals. He talked about their nightmares and their healing, their homework and their laughter. Mr. Morrison, the judge said, you've never been a parent before. What makes you think you can handle 2 children with trauma histories? Your Honor, I don't know if I can handle everything, Jake said honestly, but I know I love them. I know they feel safe with me, and I know I'll never stop trying to do right by them. What can you offer them that their aunt cannot? Jake thought about this carefully. Stability, Your Honor. I own my land and my home. I have savings and no debt. But more than that, I can offer them unconditional love. I'm not taking them in because I need the money or because I feel obligated. I want them because they're Emma and Tommy and my life is better with them in it. The hardest part was when Emma and Tommy had to speak to the judge. Judge Hawkins talked to them gently, but Jake could see how scared they were. Emma, the judge said, do you remember your Aunt Linda? A little, Emma said quietly. She came to our house sometimes when Mom was sick, but she never stayed long. How do you feel about living with her? Emma looked at Jake, then back at the judge. I don't want to, Your Honor. I know she's family, but she doesn't really know us. She doesn't know that Tommy has nightmares sometimes, or that I like to read, or that we both love animals. Jake knows all of that. Where would you like to live? With Jake, Emma said without hesitation. He makes us feel safe. He helps with our homework and teaches us about ranching. He never yells at us, and he keeps his promises. When it was Tommy's turn, he was so nervous he could barely speak above a whisper. Tommy, the judge said kindly, can you tell me about living on the ranch? I like it there, Tommy said. Jake lets me help feed the cows, and I have a cat named Rusty. Emma and I have our own room, and Jake reads us stories sometimes. What do you think about going to live with your aunt? Tommy's eyes filled with tears. I don't want to. I want to stay with Jake and Emma. We're a family now. During a recess, Jake found Emma and Tommy in the hallway. Emma was crying, and Tommy was clinging to her. I don't think the judge believes us, Emma said. I think she's going to make us go with Aunt Linda. Jake knelt down and pulled them both close. Whatever happens, we're going to be okay. You two are the bravest, strongest kids I know. And no matter where you live, you'll always be my children. When court resumed, Judge Hawkins announced that she needed time to consider all the evidence. She would issue her decision within 1 week. In the meantime, she said, the children will remain in their current placement with Mr. Morrison. Outside the courthouse, Linda was angry. This is ridiculous, she told her lawyer. They're my blood relatives. Some stranger can't just take them. Her lawyer looked uncomfortable. Ms. Jeffries, I have to be honest. Your testimony didn't go very well. The judge seemed more impressed with Mr. Morrison's knowledge of the children. I can learn about them, Linda said. I just need time. Where have you been for 4 years? Emma asked suddenly. Everyone turned to look at her. When Mom was dying, where were you? When we were placed in bad foster homes? Where were you? When Mr. Peterson was hurting us? Where were you? Linda's face flushed. I had my own life to deal with. And now you want us because the state will pay you to take care of us, Emma continued. You don't love us, you don't even know us. That's not true, Linda said, but her voice lacked conviction. Yes, it is, Tommy said quietly. You didn't even remember that I like cats. Jake put his hands on the children's shoulders. That's enough, he said gently. Let's go home. The drive back to the ranch was quiet. Emma stared out the window, and Tommy fell asleep in the back seat. Jake's mind was racing, trying to figure out what else he could do to strengthen his case. That evening, something unexpected happened. Jake's phone rang, and it was Mike from Child Services. Jake, I just got a call from the investigator looking into the Peterson case, Mike said. Emma and Tommy aren't the only children who've made accusations against him. There are 3 other kids with similar stories. What does that mean? It means Emma's testimony about why they ran away is being taken very seriously. It also means the judge is going to look more carefully at who's best suited to protect these children. Over the next few days, Jake tried to keep life normal for Emma and Tommy, while they waited for the judge's decision. They continued their routine of ranch work, homework, and family dinners. But there was tension in the air that even Tommy could feel. Jake, Tommy said one evening while they were feeding the cattle, if we have to go with Aunt Linda, will you visit us? Every chance I get, Jake promised. But what if she doesn't let you? Jake stopped what he was doing and looked at Tommy. Seriously, Tommy, no matter what any adult says, you and Emma will always be important to me. If I can't visit you, I'll write you letters. If I can't write letters, I'll think about you every day and hope you're okay. Nothing will ever change how much I care about you. Emma overheard this conversation, and that night she knocked on Jake's bedroom door. Jake, can I talk to you? Of course. Emma sat on the edge of his bed, looking serious. I want you to know something. Even if we have to leave, these have been the best weeks of my life. For the first time since Mom died, I felt like Tommy and I had a real home. Jake felt tears sting his eyes. Emma, you gave me something too. You and Tommy brought my house back to life. You made me remember what it feels like to have a family. Do you think we'll be okay if we have to go with Aunt Linda? Jake chose his words carefully. I think you and Tommy are strong enough to be okay anywhere. But I also think you deserve better than just okay. You deserve to be loved and valued. And protected. And I'm going to keep fighting to make sure that happens. The phone call came on a Friday afternoon. Judge Hawkins had made her decision. Monday morning came gray and cold. Jake, Emma, and Tommy sat on the same wooden bench outside the courtroom, but this time they weren't alone. Mike had come to support them, along with Mrs. Patterson, Emma's teacher, and even Doc Harris, the veterinarian who had seen how gentle Tommy was with animals. When Judge Hawkins called them into the courtroom, Jake's heart was pounding so hard he was sure everyone could hear it. Emma reached over and took his hand, and Tommy pressed close to his other side. Judge Hawkins looked at her papers for what felt like forever before she spoke. This has been a difficult case, she began. The court recognizes the importance of family bonds and the general preference for placing children with blood relatives. However, The court must also consider the best interests of the children involved. Jake held his breath. Ms. Jeffries, while I appreciate your desire to care for your nephew and niece, your testimony and background investigation raise concerns about your ability to provide stability. Your history of financial instability, lack of knowledge about the children's specific needs and absence during their mother's illness and death, all weigh against your petition. Linda's face went red, but she didn't say anything. Mr. Morrison, your lack of parenting experience is certainly a concern. However, the evidence shows that Emma and Tommy have thrived under your care. They are emotionally stable, academically successful, and clearly bonded to you. Most importantly, they have expressed a strong preference to remain with you. Jake felt Emma's hand tighten in his. Therefore, this court awards temporary custody of Emma and Tommy Caldwell to Jake Morrison, with the goal of permanent adoption if the children and Mr. Morrison continue to do well together. The courtroom erupted. Tommy started crying happy tears, and Emma threw her arms around Jake's neck. Even Mike was smiling and shaking his head in amazement. Linda stood up angrily. This isn't fair. They're my family. Judge Hawkins looked at her sternly. Ms. Jeffries, you have the right to appeal this decision. However, I would encourage you to consider what's truly best for these children. If you genuinely care about their welfare, you might consider building a relationship with them gradually rather than disrupting the stability they found. Outside the courthouse, Jake felt like he was walking on air. Emma and Tommy were chattering excitedly about going home and telling Rusty the good news. For the first time in months, Jake felt like he could breathe properly. But as the weeks passed, Jake realized that winning custody was just the beginning. The judge had been right about one thing. Emma and Tommy came with complicated histories that couldn't be fixed overnight. The first real crisis came 3 weeks after the court decision. Jake woke up in the middle of the night to screaming coming from the children's room. He ran down the hall and found Tommy sitting up in bed, crying and shaking. Emma was trying to comfort him, but she looked scared too. He had a nightmare, Emma explained. Sometimes he dreams about Mr. Peterson. Jake sat down on Tommy's bed and gently rubbed the boy's back. It's okay, buddy. You're safe now. No one's going to hurt you. But Tommy couldn't stop shaking. He was coming to get us, Tommy sobbed. He said we couldn't hide from him. Jake realized that love and good intentions weren't enough. These children needed professional help to deal with their trauma. The next day, he called Dr. Williams and asked for a referral to a child therapist. Dr. Sarah Kim specialized in working with children who had experienced abuse and neglect. She was young and kind, with a gentle way of talking that made even Tommy feel comfortable. Trauma isn't something you can just get over, Dr. Kim explained to Jake. It lives in the body and the mind. Emma and Tommy are going to need time and support to heal. Emma was resistant to therapy at first. I don't need to talk about the past, she said. I just want to move on. But Dr. Kim was patient. She didn't push Emma to talk about traumatic memories right away. Instead, she helped Emma understand that her hypervigilance and need to protect Tommy were normal responses to what she had experienced. You've been taking care of your brother for a long time, Dr. Kim said. That's a big responsibility for someone your age. It's okay to let Jake help you now. Tommy's therapy was different. He expressed his feelings through drawing and play. Dr. Kim had him draw pictures of his nightmares, then helped him change the endings so they weren't scary anymore. Jake went to his own therapy sessions with Dr. Williams, learning how to be a trauma-informed parent. He discovered that some of the children's behaviors that seemed defiant or difficult were actually symptoms of their past experiences. When Emma argues with you about bedtime, Dr. Williams explained, she's not being disrespectful. She's testing whether you'll abandon her if she's not perfect. Children who've been in multiple placements often believe that love is conditional. Jake started learning new ways to respond to challenging behaviors. When Emma had angry outbursts, he stayed calm and reassured her that he wasn't going anywhere. When Tommy clung to him anxiously, he provided extra comfort instead of pushing for independence. The healing process wasn't always smooth. There were setbacks and difficult days. Emma sometimes retreated into herself, reading for hours and refusing to talk. Tommy had periods where he regressed, becoming clingy and having accidents. One particularly hard day came in November. Emma had been moody and distant all week, snapping at Tommy and arguing with Jake about everything. Finally, Jake found her crying in the barn. "I don't know why I'm being so mean," Emma sobbed. "I don't want to be angry all the time, but I can't help it." Jake sat down next to her in the hay. "Dr. Kim says that anger is part of healing. You've been through things that would make any adult angry. It's okay to feel that way. But what if you get tired of dealing with me? What if you decide we're too much trouble?" Jake turned so he was facing her. "Emma, look at me. I chose you and Tommy. Not because you're easy or perfect, but because you're you. The angry parts, the scared parts, the brave parts, all of it. There's nothing you could do that would make me stop loving you." Emma cried harder, and Jake held her until she was ready to talk about what was really bothering her. It turned out that a boy at school had made fun of her for being a foster kid, calling her damaged goods. The comment had triggered all her fears about being unwanted. Jake helped Emma understand that other people's ignorance didn't define her worth. He also talked to her teacher about the bullying, making sure Emma felt supported at school as well as at home. Tommy's breakthrough came differently. He had been having nightmares regularly, and Jake was starting to worry that they would never stop. Then one night, Tommy had a bad dream but managed to wake himself up. "Jake," Tommy called out. "I had the scary dream, but I remembered what Dr. Kim taught me." Jake rushed to Tommy's room and found the boy sitting up in bed looking proud instead of terrified. "I changed the ending," Tommy said excitedly. "In my dream, Mr. Peterson was being mean, but then you and Emma came and told him to go away. And he had to leave because we're a family now, and we protect each other." Jake felt tears in his eyes. "That's exactly right, buddy. We do protect each other." The nightmares didn't stop completely, but they became less frequent and less intense. Tommy was learning that he had power over his own thoughts and fears. Family therapy sessions helped all three of them learn how to communicate better. Dr. Kim taught them about triggers and coping strategies. She helped Jake understand that healing from trauma wasn't a straight line. There would be good days and bad days, progress and setbacks. "The most important thing you can give these children," Dr. Kim told Jake, "is consistency. They need to know that you'll be there for them even when things get hard." Jake learned to recognize the signs when Emma or Tommy were struggling. He created safe spaces for them to express their feelings without judgment. He also learned to take care of himself because being a single parent to traumatized children was exhausting work. The holidays were challenging. Emma and Tommy had complicated feelings about Christmas because their mother had died in December. They wanted to be happy about their new family, but they also felt guilty for moving on. Jake didn't try to force joy or create perfect holiday memories. Instead, he let the children set the pace. They made ornaments for Sarah's memory and for their mother. They talked about the people they missed and the gratitude they felt for finding each other. "It's okay to be sad and happy at the same time," Jake told them. "Feelings don't have to make sense. They just have to be honest." By spring, the changes were remarkable. Emma's angry outbursts became rare, and she started opening up more about her feelings. She joined the photography club at school and made friends with other kids who shared her interests. Tommy's nightmares decreased to maybe once a month, and he was thriving in his classes. More importantly, they were learning to trust that their family was permanent. Emma stopped hoarding food in her room, a behavior she had developed in foster care. Tommy stopped asking every night if he could stay forever. One evening in May, as they sat on the front porch watching the sunset, Tommy made an observation that showed how much he had healed. "Jake," he said thoughtfully, "remember when we first came here and Emma was always scared you would send us away?" "I remember," Jake said. "I think she's not scared of that anymore, and I'm not either. We belong here now, don't we?" The adoption papers arrived on a Tuesday in September, almost a year after Emma and Tommy had first appeared in Jake's barn. Jake held the thick envelope in his hands, knowing that inside were the documents that would make their family official and permanent. Emma and Tommy crowded around him at the kitchen table as he opened the envelope. The legal language was complicated, but the meaning was simple. Jake Morrison was officially petitioning to adopt Emma Marie Caldwell and Thomas James Caldwell. "Does this mean we'll have your last name?" Tommy asked, running his finger over the papers. If that's what you want, Jake said, you can keep your mother's name if you prefer. Emma looked thoughtful. Could we be Emma and Tommy Morrison Caldwell, so we keep Mom's name but add yours too? Jake smiled. I think that's perfect. The adoption process took 6 more months. There were more home visits, more interviews, and more paperwork than Jake had ever imagined. But this time felt different. They weren't fighting for the right to stay together. They were making their bond legal and permanent. Judge Hawkins presided over the adoption hearing, and this time her smile was genuine. It gives me great pleasure to grant this adoption, she said. I've seen the progress reports from your therapists and teachers. This family has clearly flourished together. After the judge signed the papers, they celebrated with dinner at the diner in town. Emma and Tommy insisted on ordering dessert, and Jake let them have ice cream for breakfast the next morning to celebrate their new names. But becoming a permanent family brought new challenges that Jake hadn't expected. With the legal uncertainty gone, Emma and Tommy began dealing with emotions they had pushed aside during the custody battle. Emma, now 13, started struggling with anger again. Not the survival mode anger from her early days with Jake, but the deeper anger of a teenager who was processing years of abandonment and trauma. It's not fair, she shouted one evening after Jake asked her to help with dinner. Other kids don't, have to go to therapy twice a week. Other kids have normal families. Jake took a deep breath, remembering what Dr. Kim had taught him about validation. You're right. It's not fair that you went through what you did. And it's normal to be angry about it. I hate that everyone at school knows we're adopted, Emma continued. I hate the teachers look at us like we're broken. I hate that I can't just be a normal kid. Jake sat down across from her. What would being a normal kid look like to you? Emma's anger deflated a little. I don't know. Maybe having friends over without worrying they'll think our family is weird. Maybe not having panic attacks when teachers call on me unexpectedly. Maybe not having to explain why I don't have baby pictures or why I know so much about taking care of kids. Jake felt his heart break for her. Emma had been forced to grow up too fast, and now she was grieving the childhood she had lost. You know what? Jake said. You're right. You should be able to be a normal kid. What if we worked on that? What do you mean? What if we made a list of normal teenage things you want to do, and we figure out how to make them happen? Emma looked suspicious. Like what? I don't know. What do other kids your age do? Emma thought about it. They have sleepovers. They go to movies with friends. They complain about their parents without worrying that they'll get sent away. Okay, Jake said. Let's start with a sleepover. Is there someone from school you'd like to invite? Emma's eyes widened. Really? You'd let me have a friend over? Of course. This is your home, Emma. You should be able to have friends here. The Bay sleepover was a success, but it also highlighted another challenge. Emma's friend Melissa was from a traditional 2-parent family, and she asked a lot of questions about their situation. So, Jake isn't your real dad? Melissa asked during dinner. Tommy looked confused. He's our real dad now, he said. He adopted us. But where are your real parents? Emma's face tightened. Our mom died. We don't have a father. Jake stepped in gently. Every family is different, Melissa. Some kids live with their biological parents. Some live with adoptive parents. Some live with grandparents or other relatives. What matters is that families love and take care of each other. Later that night, after Melissa went home, Emma brought up the conversation. I hated those questions, she said. Why do people think adoptive families aren't real families? Because they don't understand, Jake said. Some people think biology is the only thing that makes a family real. But we know better, don't we? Emma nodded, but Jake could see she was still bothered. He realized that she was dealing with questions about identity and belonging that would probably continue throughout her teenage years. Tommy faced different challenges. Now 10 years old, he was becoming more aware of how different his early life had been from his classmates. He started asking harder questions about their mother's death and why no one in their family had been able to take care of them. "Jake," Tommy said one evening while they were doing homework, "why did our mom use drugs? Didn't she love us?" Jake set down his pen and gave Tommy his full attention. "Your mom loved you very much, Tommy. Addiction is a disease that makes people do things they don't want to do. Your mom didn't choose drugs over you. She was sick and couldn't get better. But why didn't anyone help her?" This was the hardest question of all. "I think a lot of people tried to help her, but sometimes help doesn't work the way we want it to. And sometimes people don't know how to help." Tommy was quiet for a long time. "I wish I could remember her better." Jake had been thinking about this too. He had been working with Dr. Kim to help the children process their grief about their mother. She had suggested creating memory books with photos and stories. "Would you like to try to find some pictures of your mom?" Jake asked. "Maybe we could make a special book with memories about her." Tommy's face lit up. "Could we really do that?" Jake reached out to the children's former social worker and managed to track down some of their mother's belongings that had been stored by the state. In a small box, they found photo albums, letters, and even a journal their mother had kept. Creating. The memory book became a family project. Emma read through her mother's journal and shared stories about their life before addiction took over. Tommy dictated his few memories while Jake wrote them down. They found pictures of birthday parties, Christmas mornings, and ordinary moments that showed how much their mother had loved them. "She was beautiful," Tommy said, looking at a picture of their mother holding him as a baby. "I wish I could tell her that we're okay now." "Maybe you can," Emma said quietly. "Maybe she knows." The memory book helped both children understand their history better, but it also brought up complicated feelings. Emma felt angry that their mother couldn't get clean for them. Tommy felt sad that he would never see her again. "It's okay to have mixed feelings about your mom," Dr. Kim told them during a family session. "You can love someone and still be angry at them. You can miss someone and still be happy in your new life." School presented ongoing challenges too. Emma was academically gifted but struggled socially. She had difficulty trusting other teenagers and often felt older than her peers. Jake worked with her teachers to find appropriate challenges for her, while also encouraging her to participate in age-appropriate activities. Tommy had the opposite problem. He was social and well-liked, but he sometimes shared too much information about his past with classmates. He would tell other kids about living in foster care or about the abuse they had experienced, not understanding that some information was private. Jake had to have several conversations with Tommy about boundaries and appropriate sharing. "It's good that you're not ashamed of our story," Jake told him. "But some things are private family business. You don't have to tell everyone everything that happened to you." "But why?" Tommy asked. "I'm not embarrassed about it." "It's not about being embarrassed," Jake explained. "It's about protecting yourself. Some people might not understand, and they might treat you differently if they know too much about your past." Learning these social boundaries was hard for Tommy, who had learned to be open about his feelings in therapy, but needed to understand that not every relationship required complete honesty. The biggest challenge came in the spring of their second year together. Emma had been doing well in school and seemed to be adjusting to teenage life when she suddenly started having panic attacks again. The first one happened during a math test. Emma's teacher called Jake to come get her after she ran out of the classroom crying and couldn't calm down. "I don't know what happened," Emma sobbed in the car. "I was doing fine, and then suddenly I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was going to die." Dr. Kim explained that panic attacks were common in trauma survivors, especially during times of stress or transition. Emma is becoming more independent, which is healthy, but independence can also trigger fears about abandonment. The panic attacks continued for several weeks. Emma was afraid to go to school, afraid to be away from Jake, afraid that something terrible would happen while they were apart. "What if you have an accident while I'm at school?" Emma asked one morning, refusing to get out of bed. "What if something happens to you and Tommy and I are left alone again?" Jake realized that Emma's fear wasn't irrational, She had lost her mother unexpectedly, and she had been separated from Tommy before. Her anxiety made sense given her history. 2 years later, Emma was 15 and Tommy was 12. The Morrison-Caldwell family had found their rhythm. Emma was student body treasurer at the high school and captain of the photography club. Her pictures of ranch life had won several contests, and she was already thinking about college applications. Tommy was in 7th grade, playing on the soccer team and helping Jake with the cattle every afternoon. The house Jake had once shared only with memories was now filled with teenage conversations, homework debates, and the sound of friends coming and going. Emma's pictures covered the refrigerator alongside Tommy's soccer schedule and Jake's veterinary appointments for the cattle. It was an ordinary Tuesday in October when Mrs. Chen called. Jake hadn't heard from her in over a year, so he was surprised to see her name on his phone. "Jake, I have a situation," she said without preamble. "I have 2 children who need emergency placement. Siblings like Emma and Tommy were. I know this is a lot to ask, but tell me about them," Jake said. "Maria is 8 and her brother Carlos is 6. Their grandmother was taking care of them, but she had a stroke last week. There's no other family, and they're terrified of being separated." Jake felt something familiar stir in his chest. What happened to their parents? Father was never in the picture. Mother died in a work accident 2 years ago. The grandmother has been their only stability, but she's going to need long-term care. Jake looked out his kitchen window at Emma and Tommy. They were in the yard with Rusty, who was now an old cat but still followed Tommy everywhere. Emma was taking pictures of her brother playing with their new puppy, a border collie named Scout that Jake had gotten for Tommy's birthday. "Mrs. Chen, can I call you back? I need to talk to Emma and Tommy about this." That evening at dinner, Jake brought up Mrs. Chen's call. Emma and Tommy listened carefully as he explained about Maria and Carlos. "They're scared and alone, just like you were when you first came here," Jake said. Mrs. Chen asked if we might consider taking them in, at least temporarily. Emma was quiet for a long moment. "Are they from Mexico? Maria and Carlos sound like Spanish names." "I think so." "Why? I just want to make sure they feel welcome. I remember how scared we were, and we could at least speak English." Tommy was more direct. "Where would they sleep, in our room?" Jake had been thinking about logistics too. "We could convert the den into another bedroom. Or we could build an addition onto the house." "You'd really do that?" Emma asked. "Build more rooms for kids you've never met?" Jake realized what he was suggesting. Taking in 2 more children would change everything. Their family of 3 would become a family of 5. The house would be more crowded, the grocery bills would be higher, and there would be 4 children's worth of homework, activities, and emotions to navigate. "I don't know," Jake said honestly. "But I keep thinking about how scared you 2 were when you showed up in my barn, and I keep thinking about how empty this house was before you came. If these children need a safe place, and we have room in our hearts." Emma smiled, and Jake was amazed at how mature she looked. "You want to say yes, don't you?" "Yeah, I do. But only if you and Tommy are okay with it. This is your home, too. You get a say in who joins our family." Tommy was already nodding enthusiastically. "Can we meet them first, to make sure we all get along?" "Of course," Jake said. Mrs. Chen said, "They're staying in a group home right now, but it's only temporary. We could visit them this weekend." Emma looked thoughtful. "Jake, what if we can't adopt them? What if they have family somewhere else? Or what if their grandmother gets better?" "Then we'll love them and take care of them for as long as they need us," Jake said. "Just like I hoped someone would do for you if something had happened to me." The group home was a large institutional building in town. Maria and Carlos were waiting in the visitors' room with a social worker when Jake, Emma, and Tommy arrived. Maria was small for 8, with dark hair and 2 neat braids and serious brown eyes that reminded Jake of Emma when they first met. She held tightly to her little brother's hand. Carlos was 6 but looked younger, with the same dark hair and the same wary expression. "Maria, Carlos," the social worker said in English, then repeated something in Spanish. "These are the people I told you about. Mr. Morrison and his children Emma and Tommy." Maria whispered something to Carlos in Spanish, and he nodded. "Do they speak English?" Emma asked. Some, the social worker said. Maria knows more than Carlos. Their grandmother spoke both languages with them. Emma knelt down so she was at Maria's eye level. Hola, she said carefully. Me llamo Emma. Maria's eyes widened slightly. You speak Spanish? A little, Emma said. I've been learning in school. This is my brother Tommy, and this is our dad, Jake. Jake was touched that Emma had called him their dad without hesitation. Tommy sat down on the floor next to Carlos. Do you like soccer? He asked, miming kicking a ball. Carlos nodded shyly and said something in Spanish to Maria. He says he likes to play, but he doesn't have a ball, Maria translated. I have lots of balls at home, Tommy said, and we have a big yard where we can play. For the next hour, they sat in the group home small visiting room and tried to get to know each other. Maria was protective of Carlos, just like Emma had been with Tommy. Carlos was quieter, but Jake could see him watching Tommy with interest. Emma showed them pictures on her phone of the ranch, the animals, and their house. She had learned enough Spanish to explain some of what they were seeing. Casa, she said, pointing to a picture of their house. Home. Es muy grande, Maria said. It's very big. Sí, Emma said, with lots of room. When it was time to leave, Carlos started crying. He didn't want to go back to the dormitory-style room he shared with 5 other children. When will we see you again? Maria asked in English. Jake knelt down next to both children. We're going to come back tomorrow, okay? And if you want, and if it's okay with the social worker, maybe you can come see our house. That night, Emma and Tommy peppered Jake with questions about Maria and Carlos. Did you see how Maria wouldn't let go of Carlos's hand? Emma said. She's scared someone will take him away. Carlos reminds me of how I was when we first came here, Tommy added. Really quiet and scared. Are you sure you want them to come? Live with us? Jake asked. It's going to change our family a lot. Emma and Tommy looked at each other, having one of those silent conversations that siblings have. Jake, Emma said finally, do you remember what you told me that first night? About how some people keep their promises? Jake nodded. You promised to take care of us, and you did. You promised we'd never be separated, and we weren't. You promised we'd always have a home, and we do. Emma's voice got stronger as she talked. Maybe it's time for us to make the same kind of promises to Maria and Carlos. Tommy nodded vigorously. Besides, Scout needs more kids to play with, and Rusty's getting lonely since he's the only cat. Jake laughed. So we're taking in 2 more children because our animals need company? Exactly, Tommy said seriously. The next day, Maria and Carlos came to visit the ranch. Carlos was amazed by the cattle and followed Tommy around like a shadow. Maria was more cautious, but Jake caught her smiling when Emma showed her the photography darkroom Jake had set up in the basement. You take all these pictures? Maria asked, looking at Emma's prints. See? Yes, Emma said. Do you like pictures? Maria nodded. My abuela, my grandmother, she had lots of pictures of our family. Maybe we can take new pictures, Emma suggested, of our family here. That evening, as Jake was driving Maria and Carlos back to the group home, Maria asked, Mr. Jake, if we come live with you, do we have to change our names? No, Jake said. You can keep whatever name you want. Emma and Tommy decided to keep their mother's name and add mine, but that was their choice. And can we still speak Spanish? Of course. I'd like to learn some Spanish too, if you're willing. To teach me. Maria was quiet for a moment. Carlos wants to know if we can call you Papa. Jake felt his throat tighten. If that's what you want to call me, I'd be honored. The paperwork for emergency placement went through quickly. A week later, Maria and Carlos arrived at the ranch with 2 small suitcases and a stuffed elephant that belonged to Carlos. The first few weeks were challenging. Maria had nightmares about their grandmother dying alone in the hospital. Carlos didn't understand why they couldn't go home to their old house. Both children struggled with the language barrier, especially when they were upset. But slowly they began to adjust. Emma took Maria shopping for school clothes and helped her with English homework. Tommy shared his room with Carlos and taught him to play soccer in the backyard. Jake started taking Spanish lessons online so he could communicate better with Dashath. Both children. The breakthrough came 3 weeks after Maria and Carlos arrived. Jake was making dinner when he heard laughter coming from the living room. He looked in and saw all 4 children on the floor with Scout and Rusty. Emma was teaching Maria to use her camera, while Tommy and Carlos built a fort out of couch cushions. "Papa," Carlos called out in his mix of Spanish and English, "Look, Tommy showed me how to make the castle." Jake felt tears in his eyes. Carlos had called him Papa. That night, as Jake tucked all 4 children into their beds, he thought about how much his life had changed in just a few years. His house was noisy, now full of different languages.